All right, how's it going? I got another video for you. YouTube censors epidemiologist Knut Wittkowski for opposing lockdown. Big tech companies are aggressively tamping down on COVID-19 misinformation in quotes. Opinions and ideas contrary to the official pronouncements, which is they are using the World Health Organization, especially places like YouTube, and the World Health Organization has been wrong about things. Either they were at best just, I don't know, inept, and at worst they seem to be maybe in bed with China. So, Dr. Knut M. Wittkowski, former head of biostatistics, epidemiology, and research design at Rockefeller University, says YouTube removed a video of him talking about the virus, which had racked up more than 1.3 million views. There was another set of doctors, too, out in California. It was like 2 ER doctors that ran their own kind of like emergency practice, and they were bringing up like their own statistics, their own numbers, and showing like actual statistical facts of what they were saying and what was happening in California. And YouTube took it down because it's contrary to the narrative that they're pushing. Like they want to push this like kind of like scare narrative. Everybody should be afraid and in their houses, and like it's like it was flatten the curve. That now they're like trying to go even further and say like trying to find a cure, which there's even like we don't even have a cure for cancer. Like it took however long for like HIV/AIDS to have some kind of. It's not like a total cure. So waiting for a cure is not going to happen. I think out in California, they just extended it for like 3 more months. And people are getting fed up with it. Wittkowski, 65, is a ferocious critic of the nation's current steps to fight the coronavirus. He has derided social distancing, saying it only prolongs the virus's existence, and has attacked the current lockdown as mostly unnecessary. Wittkowski, who holds 2 doctorates in computer science and medical biometry, believes the coronavirus should have been allowed to achieve herd immunity, and that short of a vaccine, the pandemic will only end after it has sufficiently spread throughout the population. So they may talk about it too. There's places like Sweden that didn't have any lockdown, and they should be reaching herd immunity. There's like certain states too that like I want to say South Dakota didn't lock down at all. Kristi Noem was saying like you should take these precautions, but like as the government we can't become tyrannical like they have in New York and they have in California and they have in Michigan, and like step in and like halt people's rights, which the Bill of Rights was put in place to stop the government from overreach on individual citizens. With all respiratory diseases, the only thing that stops the disease is herd immunity. About 80% of the people need to have contact with the virus, and the majority of them won't even have recognized that they were infected, he says in the now deleted video. I was just explaining what we had. Wittkowski told the post of the video, saying we had no idea why it was removed. The footage was produced by the British film company Journeyman Pictures. And this is an issue too with like kind of YouTube being like sleazy with like information that they don't deem appropriate or anything, or like it's not like an authoritative source. And you hear like Tim Pool talk about this too. Like there's things that he brought up that when he first brought up was fine. Then it was deemed that he couldn't say it. Then once the authoritative sources were saying it, then somehow at that point it became fine. Like independent journalists, like people like breaking the story, like that gets deemed as like false information until like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or like one of these bigger broadcast network things. Then they pick it up. Then because that they do it, then now it's like authoritative and now it's factual somehow, even though a ton of their stuff turns out to be either like lies or like misdirection or misleading or something like that. They don't tell you, they just say it violates our community standards. There is no explanation for what those standards are or what standards it violated. In articles and interviews across the web, he has likened COVID-19 to a bad flu that likely made him a target for YouTube, which said in April it would be removing information that's problematic about the pandemic. And that's like any time someone has like problematic, that's kind of a big red flag. Because I believe the flu season last year was like 61,000 deaths. The year before is around 80,000 deaths, and that's what it's sitting at around right now. But you also have to keep in mind too that like New York in one day added like 3,700 deaths to the count of COVID. And there's the issues like none of them were ever tested. They're like, oh, we'll just add it to it. We just presume that they do it. And they're going on, they're like saying like, and there's an issue too if you listen to the like the Joe Rogan podcast when he had Elon Musk on there talking about it. They're talking about like there's like a big distinction between like, you know, someone who's deceased with COVID and someone who's like been deceased with COVID like symptoms, you know, weakness, shortness of breath, coughing, which can happen with, you know, the flu, pneumonia, emphysema, all these other things. In articles and interviews across the web is likened COVID-19 to a bad flu that likely made him a target for YouTube, which said in April will be removing information that's problematic. Anything that goes against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy, and so removal is another really important part of the policy. They also said on Twitter that there is no human-to-human transmission of the COVID virus. And they had it up for like 6 days, and they knew that it was true, but they still misled people, whether it was incompetence or like ill intent. We're not sure. Wittkowski's argument is a minority opinion among his colleagues, but still well within mainstream thought and currently in the bias for Sweden's non-lockdown approach to the pandemic. The embattled World Health Organization, however, is not a fan, with the group's executive director of health emergencies, Mike Ryan, this week calling it a really dangerous calculation. Well, there's also people saying that like there's going to be they said it's going to be like 2.2 million dead, and that came nowhere near close to happening. Then people were like, oh, but we have social distancing. And those calculations were made with actually social distancing. Then it went down to like maybe 200,000. Then now they were saying like around the 80,000 mark. Rockefeller University, Wittkowski's employer for 20 years, also released a statement sharply distancing himself from him last month. But they employed him for 20 years, which is kind of weird. While the doctor might have been too hot for YouTube, he has found a home at the American Institute for Economic Research, which is currently hosting the video online across social media. Censors have been racing to limit the flow of verbatim information. We have broadened our definition of harm to address content that goes directly against guidance from authoritative sources of global and local public health information. Twitter said in April, shortly after removing 2 tweets by Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. The same month, Facebook conceded they had been working with state governments in California, New Jersey, and Nebraska to remove pages for anti-quarantine events, which are, they're like First Amendment events and like basically just people that were trying to be able to get back to work because they can't pay for food or electricity or their rent or mortgage. And also because like unemployment, like they'd been calling, trying to get it set up and they can't get it to go through. And of course people like will try to smear them as like, oh, they just want a haircut. Like, no, they want to be able to like survive and live and not have to go to a food bank, which some of them are, but there's like miles long lines there and the food bank's running out of food. So what are people going to do? It's kind of it's the kind of totalitarian thinking. No, it's the kind of totalitarian. No, totalitarian thinking. There we go. Jesus. And conduct that has cost millions of lives in recent world history. The fact that it's being done by private companies and not government doesn't change that. Ron Coleman, a prominent First Amendment lawyer, told the Post. Wittkowski, however, says history has already vindicated his earlier position that the old the compromise alone should have been strictly isolated, which the Post reported in March. Roughly 1/3 of all U.S. COVID-19 deaths have been among nursing home patients and staff, a problem which Wittkowski says was deeply exacerbated in New York by Governor Cuomo's March 25th executive order requiring nursing homes to accept individuals with the virus. Also, the median age of death for people with COVID is 81. And like the median age of death, like all together, is like 80. So the age of death for COVID is higher than the normal age of death. So like immune compromised, older people, then they're the most affected. Like healthy people are not, like exponentially not. He dismissed a new order from the governor this week requiring regular COVID testing for staff as a farce. Cuomo can't undo his mistake of forcing nursing homes to take in infected people when the horse is out of the barn, he said. If nothing else, Wittkowski has made a point of practicing what he preaches. The German national flautist New York's coronavirus restrictions, walking around his Upper East Side neighborhood maskless and eating in underground restaurants. We don't have to fear anything but fear, he said. Wasn't that an American who said that? So, but it seems to be if there's like everybody's like, oh, like follow the advice of like the doctors and stuff. And then you have like certain doctors come up, it's like, hey, yeah, this is wrong. Don't follow this. Like, no, we don't mean that. Then they bring Greta Thunberg up to like a coronavirus panel. I was like, oh, we don't want to like, don't follow this doctor, but follow this child that doesn't know what she's talking about. So, I mean, it's kind of it's really just, it's getting to the point where they're just trying to push a narrative. So if you like this, you can give me a like. If you really like, you can subscribe. If you're on Facebook, you can like and follow. I have this way. I have a subscribe star here if you want to help out in any way, I guess. My brain's going weird, but yeah, there's that. All right, peace.